What's up, guys? Sparring Cat here, and in today's Battle Cats video, I'm going to be sorting through a bunch of units that I think are overrated or just very good, and I'm going to be rating them on the scale from fairly rated to blatantly overrated. There will be no underrated units on this list, and the point of this is to help you guys decide which units are overrated, but also to give my opinion on this. Thank you for your patience. School has been very time consuming. I haven't been able to post as many long videos as I'd like to post, but I've been trying to keep it up with shorts and everything. It's obviously not the same, but I'm very, very glad to be back doing tier lists. All right, starting things off, we have Normal Cat, and I think he's slightly overrated. Everybody's used him a million times. He's helped us all beat Korea, so big props to that. But I do think he's overrated because every single time you click the icon to the game to get into the Battle Cats, his face is on it. And in my opinion, his face should not be on it. Can should be on it, or Balrogs or something, but I don't know. He seems a little fishy to me. Not that overrated. Obviously, everybody's used him, and I think he's a good meat shield in a ton of different situations, but he's getting way more clout than he deserves. Moving on from that mediocre unit, we have an almighty god right here. And he is technically considered a special. I'm going to put it in fairly rated. And the reason why is because there are so many times that so many of us have been inches from death. And this god is the reason why we didn't lose. And without him, I don't know if we'd be where we are in our games. But he's helped so many of us beat Bun Bun and many other merciless killer bosses. So thank you so much, Cat God. You don't need to be slept on. We all love you. And it only gets better from beating Cats of the Cosmos. But the only problem is that after you beat Cats of the Cosmos, you can't use them anymore if you don't have your treasures and everything. So it's a shame that we can't use them in Stories of Legend and Uncanny Legends and beyond. But at least we get our moments with them. Moving on to who I just think is very overrated is going to be Rice Ball Cat. And this is going to be a hot take. I know there's a lot of people who love Cool Japan. There's some people that just think he's a great meat shield, and I hear you out, but here's my controversial opinion. He is really no better than Eraser Cat, and I can only see you using him in restriction stages, maybe 4-star, or, like a restriction stage in Cats of the Cosmos or something, or Cool Japan, I could see that, but he's just not that good. He costs a lot of cat food for the beginning of the game where you could be focusing on saving for an 11 draw or whatever. Obviously, you can get him later down the road, but the longer you wait to get him, the worse he's going to be and the less effective he's going to be. And eventually, he just ends up being a decent meat shield, but expensive. And he kind of makes you suffer from Paris Cat syndrome where you spam her over and over again, or in his case, him, and you lose money and you're not getting enough bang for your buck. So I would recommend you using the Racer Cat over Sumo Cat, unless if there's restrictions or whatever. And then I think he's a valid meat shield. But the fact that he is so recognizable and everybody talks nicely about him, I think it's time somebody drops the gavel. But remember, agree to disagree. This is all of our opinions. And I'm the last person that will stop you from giving your opinion in the comment section. So feel free to express how you feel. Moving on, slightly overrated, I think, Paris Cat. Yes, Paris and Cyborg gets a ton of recognition, but I think she deserves most of it. Her big flaw, however, is that when there's very little money in a stage and you aimlessly and hopelessly buy her over and over again, you just buy 5 of her and you've spent 4,500 cents. That's Bahamut worth. And oftentimes, if you're just buying one of her once in a while, you're not going to do anything with her. You have to buy 10, 20 of her in a row. And that gets tedious. When you can buy many Ubers for that price, you have to consider, is it worth it? And once again, 4-star stages, even a lot of non-restriction stages, she's viable in. As long as the stages drop a lot of money, she could be a great pick. But if they don't drop enough money, then she becomes a big waste. Not as overrated as Sumo, in my opinion. Slightly overrated, I'm going to put Cadaver Bear, but also Teacher Cat Bear and Assassin Bear Cat. The reason I put him in slightly overrated is because I'm aware of how powerful he could be, especially in droves, but it's very hard to stack him because of his low range and survivability, And a lot of times when I use him, he only gets one, maybe two hits off. And I have to wait for his recharge to come back. So I can never really stack him like he's intended to be used as. And on top of that, when he does land his attack, it's usually one attack, and it only does so much. His low range, his low survivability, not very viable, but I do think he has many times to shine, especially as a supporting unit or against short range enemies and peons. He is amazing against some of them, and he has a ton of DPS. He's spammable, powerful, but I would recommend maybe using a research combo with him or something. I don't know. He just doesn't seem to survive much. Protect him well and just pray. Or maybe you have a single target boss or something. But it is nice that you can pick between which trait you want him to face against. That is very useful. Going in slightly overrated, I'm going to put Cyberpunk, and I think he's a top 7, maybe even a top 5 super rare. But my problem with him is his blind spot. Now, that could be fixed in a variety of ways, but none of them have anything to do with him. You have to bring in your own units and defend him like crazy if you want him to survive. So plan accordingly, but there are so many different stages that Cyberpunk is good in, so I'm not going to discredit him for that. I think he's an amazing super rare. I'd probably give him an A tier if I had to give him on a tier list or something, if I had to give a rating, but he's a great unit. I'm not discrediting him. I just don't think he's the number one super rare like some people might think. Some people might not think he's a top 10, and I think that is almost objectively wrong. But yeah, he's a little overrated in my eyes, and I could definitely see arguments on both sides, but I do think his blind spot becomes a problem at times. Like anybody's, Aphrodite, you could call her a bad unit because of her blind spot, but that's just an inaccurate statement. Cheetah Cat is fairly rated. I just threw him in for fun. Everywhere I see stuff about Cheetah Cat, and I've been posting content about him, I think he's a fascinating unit, even though he's probably the most boring unit in the game. It's just the circumstances you get him in, and everything else about him. I mean, he sucks. Respectfully, he sucks. And yeah, we just needed a cat like him in the game to teach the cheaters wrong, because you know what they say? Cheaters never win and winners never cheat. Well, that's exactly what you get when you think of Cheetah Cat. Cheaters never win. Balrog, I've seen a lot of people in the Battlecast community put him in overrated, and I really just can't do it myself. Everything he does is as advertised. We know he's a kamikaze in a way, maybe just like a front line damage dealer, but we get everything we expect. We know he's single target. We know he has weaknesses, but what are you expecting from him? I mean, he is insane. His damage up is incredibly powerful, and while I do recognize arguments of him maybe lacking survivability or his single target causing him to miss a lot, I guess you could bring in a wave attacker as cheap as 600 cents or even less than that, I guess. Now you can put Slime Cat's True Form in, which I think Dumpling Cat is a nice addition with the extra wavelength and everything and the extra range. Those are nice touches. But you could bring in a really cheap support, like that, use a cat can even, and you're in business. And if he locks onto a boss, there are very few bosses that will be able to match his 1v1 strength. Unless if they one-shot him, of course. But tanky bosses, tanky enemies, they really don't stand a chance against him, especially if you have crowd controllers in your lineup. So keep that in mind. I think Balrog is one of the greatest cats in the game. I think a lot of people agree. But I think where people disagree is how much of a handicap the single target is and how good his survivability is. I think that's stuff that can be debated, and I recognize those differences in our beliefs. Shisholan, I don't know. He used to be really overrated, but then people started saying Luffy's better than him, so I'm going to put him in fairly rated. He's a powerhouse. A lot of people, though, I've heard, they say that Crazed Bahamut Cat beats him, and I just don't know about that, because one, you're losing Awakened Bahamut Cat in your lineup if you're doing that, and two, he just doesn't have the same range or survivability, so I don't really understand that. But I do think Shisholan is a force to be reckoned with, and that's going to help me move on to Luffy. I do think Luffy and Shisholan are just about the same in terms of overall usageness. Usageness, I just create a word. But I do think Luffy's a little overrated. The fact that we gave him a nickname just because he looks somewhat like an anime character, and the fact that he's universally recognized by Battlecats fans, is a telltale sign that he might be a little overrated. He is probably the best unit in the Nikaluga set, but I would make a case for Shishalan Pastawan. I do think Luffy has potential to absolutely obliterate units, but RNG is almost always required here because you don't want him missing. He has time in between attack that's quite long, and you're also praying that he gets a critical hit too, which would inflict a lot more damage. So I do think he's slightly overrated, very situational, but an absolute unit similar to Balrog. I think they're both good boss killers, but because Balrog is front and center and he has quick attacks, I think he gets away with more than Luffy there. See. I think that brings me to the end of my list. I will quickly look through and see if there's anything I missed. A lot of people talk about Octopus Cat being really good, and I'm just going to put him fairly rated. Every player loves him, and it's for a very good reason. He's just amazing. But you guys, you are awesome. You made it this far into the video. This is my list of all these guys. I could argue that Rice Ball Cat is the most overrated unit in the game. But here's a few others I think are slightly overrated, and some units that some people think are overrated that I personally think are fairly rated. I don't know how many people are actually dissing Cat God or Cheetah Cat like that, but anyways, if you guys made it this far, big props to you guys. Thank you so much. It's great being back and everything. I can't promise how often I'm going to get to do this, but when I do, you know it's going to be good. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload, and all of that helps our channel grow. And leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Agree, disagree, whatever it may be. Just remember to be civil and respectful to each other. But thank you for making it this far. Sparring Cat signing off. I hope you guys have a great one. Peace.